Have you ever witnessed someone you love being humiliated and felt that burning rage that makes your vision blur? That moment when you realize some people don't deserve second chances? If you've ever wanted to see karma delivered swiftly and mercilessly, this story is for you. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories of justice served. I still remember the exact moment my wedding day transformed from the happiest day of my life into the beginning of a war. My name is Emma, and what should have been a celebration of love became the catalyst for the most calculated revenge I've ever executed. The day had started perfectly. The venue, a restored Victorian mansion with sprawling gardens, looked like something from a fairy tale. My dress, a vintage-inspired gown my mother had helped me choose, made me feel like royalty. My soon-to-be husband Michael stood at the altar looking handsome and nervous in equal measure. Everything was going according to plan until the reception. My mother, Patricia, raised me alone after my father died when I was just 7. She worked 3 jobs to put me through college, sacrificed everything to give me opportunities she never had. She's the strongest person I know, but she's also sensitive about certain things, particularly her appearance and her modest background. My in-laws, the Prestons, come from old money. They own a chain of luxury hotels across the country and never let anyone forget it. From the moment Michael introduced me to them, they made it clear they thought he was marrying beneath his station. But for the sake of peace, we all maintained a fragile civility. Until the wedding toast. Richard Preston, my father-in-law, stood up with his champagne flute. The room quieted as he began what started as a seemingly heartfelt speech about welcoming me to the family. Then his tone shifted. And of course, we must acknowledge Patricia, he said, gesturing toward my mother who sat alone at her table, wearing the blue dress she'd saved for months to buy. Who clearly did her best with what little she had. A few uncomfortable chuckles rippled through the crowd. Just look at her, Richard continued, his wife Victoria nodding encouragingly beside him. The poor woman looks like she's attending her first formal event. Which, perhaps, she is. The room of 204 guests grew painfully quiet. I saw my mother's face crumple before she tried to compose herself, her hands trembling around her water glass. I suppose we should be grateful, Victoria chimed in, taking the microphone. At least Emma learned how to present herself properly once she met our Michael. Though I do wish someone had helped Patricia select a more appropriate outfit for today. My mother excused herself from the table, her eyes brimming with tears. I started to stand, but Michael's hand on my arm stopped me. Don't make a scene, he whispered. They're just joking around. In that moment, looking at my husband's face, not outraged, not defensive of my mother, but embarrassed by my reaction, something inside me hardened. I smiled tightly and remained seated, but my mind was already calculating. The rest of the reception passed in a blur. I played my part, danced with my new husband, cut the cake, and thanked guests for coming. All while the rage inside me crystallized into something cold and precise. Later that night, in our hotel suite, Michael tried to smooth things over. They didn't mean anything by it, he said, loosening his tie. That's just how they joke. Your mom needs to develop thicker skin if she's going to be part of this family. I looked at my husband of less than 12 hours and realized I'd made a terrible mistake. The man I thought I knew would never have defended such cruelty. You're right, I said quietly. Things need to change. He smiled, relieved that I was being reasonable. He had no idea what I was actually agreeing to. While Michael slept, I made 3 phone calls. The first was to my best friend Zoe, who worked at the Financial Investigation Unit of the State Attorney's Office. The second was to my college roommate Darius, now a business journalist for a major newspaper. The third was to my mother, apologizing for not defending her and promising that things would be made right. The next morning, I woke early and told Michael I needed some air after yesterday's excitement. Instead, I met Zoe at a coffee shop 2 blocks from the hotel. Are you sure about this? She asked, sliding a folder across the table. Once it starts, there's no going back. They humiliated my mother in front of everyone we know, I said. They've been looking down on us since day one. And Michael. My voice caught. He chose them. Zoe nodded. The Prestons have been flying under the radar for years, but there are red flags all over their finances. Tax evasion, possible money laundering through their hotels, bribing building inspectors. I've been suspicious for a while but never had enough to open an official investigation. And now? Now I have an anonymous tip with enough specific information that I can't ignore it. She tapped the folder. Including copies of some very interesting documents. Documents I had accessed from Michael's laptop over the past months, knowing this day might come. The Prestons had never bothered to hide their shady dealings from family, they were too arrogant to imagine anyone would betray them. My next stop was breakfast with Darius, who listened intently as I outlined what I knew about the Preston hotel empire. This is explosive, Emma, he said, taking notes. The environmental violations alone would make headlines, but combined with the labor abuses and financial fraud? This could bring down their entire operation. How soon can you publish? I'll need to verify independently, get comments from some sources. 3 days, maybe 4. Perfect, I said. That's all I need. I returned to the hotel to find Michael frantically packing. Where have you been? He demanded. We need to leave for our honeymoon in 2 hours. Change of plans, I said calmly. I'm not going. He froze, a stack of shirts in his hands. What are you talking about? I'm leaving you, Michael. I've already called my lawyer. The marriage annulment papers will be delivered this afternoon. His face flushed with anger. Is this about last night? For God's sake, Emma, it was just a joke. My parents were nervous and said something stupid. It happens. It wasn't just last night, I said. It was every dismissive comment, every condescending look, every time you stood by and let them treat my mother and me like we were beneath you. Last night just showed me who you really are. You're overreacting, he sputtered. We can work this out. There's nothing to work out. But you should prepare yourself, and your parents, for what's coming. What does that mean? His voice had an edge of panic now. I simply smiled and walked out, closing the door on my brief marriage and the man I thought I knew. 3 days later, the Preston empire began to crumble. Darius's exposé ran on the front page of the business section, detailing years of financial misconduct, environmental violations, and labor abuses. By that afternoon, the state attorney's office announced a formal investigation into Preston hotels, with Zoe leading the financial crimes unit. The Preston stock plummeted. Their investors pulled out in droves. Their reputation, built over generations, disintegrated in hours. I watched it all unfold from my mother's modest apartment, where I'd moved temporarily while sorting out my next steps. She was horrified when she realized what I'd done. Emma, this is too much, she said, watching the news coverage. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted you to be happy. They deserved it, I insisted. And Michael deserved it too, for not standing up for you, for us. Vengeance doesn't heal wounds, sweetheart. It just creates new ones. Her words gave me pause, but not enough to regret my actions. Not yet. A week after the wedding, as the Prestons were facing multiple indictments and their company was on the verge of bankruptcy, Michael showed up at my mother's door. He looked terrible, unshaven, eyes bloodshot, clothes rumpled. You did this, he said when I answered. Not a question, but a statement of fact. Your parents humiliated my mother in front of 204 people, I replied. Actions have consequences. My father had a heart attack yesterday, he said flatly. The doctors say the stress triggered it. He's in intensive care. For the first time, I felt a flicker of doubt. I'm sorry to hear that. I never wanted anyone physically harmed. What did you want, Emma? To destroy my family? Congratulations, you've succeeded. Our company is ruined, my parents might face jail time, and everything my family built over generations is gone. They built it on lies and exploitation, I countered, but my voice lacked conviction. Maybe some of it, he acknowledged, surprising me. I'm not claiming they were perfect. But did you ever think about the hundreds of employees who are losing their jobs? The people who depended on us? Was humiliating my parents worth all that collateral damage? I hadn't thought about that. In my rage and hurt, I'd seen only the Prestons, not the wider consequences of their downfall. Why are you here, Michael? I asked, suddenly tired. I came to tell you that I'm sorry, he said, his voice breaking. I should have defended your mother. I should have stood up to my parents years ago about how they treated you both. I was a coward, and I lost you because of it. His sincerity caught me off guard. This wasn't the entitled man who had dismissed my feelings on our wedding night. It's too late, I said, though with less certainty than before. I know, he nodded. I'm not asking for another chance. I just wanted you to know that I understand why you did what you did. And I'm sorry I put you in that position. As he turned to leave, my mother appeared behind me. Michael, she called. Would you like to come in for a cup of tea? He looked as surprised as I felt. Mrs. Chen, after everything my family did. I'm not inviting your parents, she said firmly. I'm inviting you. And please, call me Patricia. That afternoon changed everything. As the three of us sat around my mother's kitchen table, Michael revealed things about his family I'd never known, his father's alcoholism, his mother's prescription drug dependency, the pressure he'd always felt to maintain the Preston legacy despite knowing some of their business practices were questionable. I wanted to change things from the inside, he explained. Take over eventually and clean house. But I was too slow, too cautious. And now, my mother asked gently. Now I have nothing to salvage, he said. But maybe that's for the best. I can start something new, something honest. I studied the man I'd married and then abandoned. There was a humility to him now that had been missing before, a genuineness that made me wonder if I'd been too quick to lump him in with his parents. Over the following months, the full extent of the Prestons' crimes came to light. Richard and Victoria both faced significant jail time. Their company was dissolved, its assets sold to pay restitution to those they'd wronged. Michael cooperated fully with investigators, providing evidence that helped ensure justice was served while minimizing the impact on innocent employees. He and I didn't reconcile romantically, too much damage had been done, but we developed a strange friendship built on the ashes of our brief marriage. He started a small, ethical hospitality consulting business, helping independent hotels compete against the chains. I used my settlement from the annulment to start a non-profit providing professional clothing and career coaching to low-income women. My mother, surprisingly, became Michael's biggest supporter. Everyone deserves a chance to become better than their past, she told me. Her capacity for forgiveness humbled me and, eventually, taught me that revenge, while temporarily satisfying, doesn't heal the original wound. A year after the wedding that wasn't, my mother invited both Michael and me to dinner. As we sat in her small dining room, so different from the grand reception hall where everything had fallen apart, she raised her glass. To lessons learned, she said. Some more painfully than others. Michael smiled ruefully. To Patricia, the most gracious woman I know. I wish my parents had seen your true worth. They couldn't, I realized aloud. People who measure everything by money and status can't recognize real value when they see it. My mother reached across the table and squeezed my hand. The important thing is that you can, sweetheart. That's what matters in the end. As I looked between my mother and my ex-husband, I understood something profound about power and justice. The Prestons had lost everything because they valued nothing but appearances and status. My mother had lost nothing because she valued what truly mattered, kindness, integrity, and the capacity to forgive. In the end, the most powerful revenge wasn't the exposure of the Prestons' crimes or the collapse of their empire. It was living well, with dignity and compassion, even toward those who had shown us none. That was the lesson my mother had been trying to teach me all along. Sometimes the world collapses around those who build their lives on cruelty and deception. But for those who choose a different path, even after being wronged, something new and stronger can emerge from the ruins. If you found this story of justice, revenge, and ultimate redemption meaningful, please hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful true stories that remind us of what really matters in life. Remember, the best revenge isn't just watching someone fall, it's rising so high that their opinion no longer matters.